everybody. My name is Joseph, and we are here with Jeremy Clark for a special interview with my co-host Brooklyn Cody, and he is a paraeducator. Can you please explain what that means?
Paraeducator, there's a couple different levels. You can be a para 1 or a para 2, and usually the para 2s are more one-on-one at the younger age, or with really developmentally disabled kids, you would be a para 2. Para 1 is like what I do. I'll come into a classroom and I'll work with any of our special education kids or any of our kids who've been identified and have been given an IEP. And IEP is Individual Education Plan. So what I do is I'll go into a classroom and I'll get with one of those kids who's been identified as that, and basically what I like to say I do is I'm coaching kids on how to be better students, better study habits, finding their work ethic, setting aside the proper amount of time to get their work done, staying on task, knowing when to put away their technology and walk into their schoolwork. Basically all of that. And what I like to do is I like to check in and I ask kids, how's your heart doing? How's your mind? You know, and check on their general well-being. So basically coaching kids to be better students and checking in to see where they're at in life, seeing if their heart's happy and seeing how stressed out they are and seeing if I can alleviate any of that. So basically para 1, boom, there you go.
Yeah. What's the hardest part about your job?
The hardest part about my job would be probably twofold. When I throw myself at a kid and I believe in a kid and I want to see that kid have success, but there's no want from him. There's no fight or from the student. There's no willingness to get better or to want to have more opportunities in life. That's hard. Probably the second hardest would be is when, you know, you get pulled aside by a student who tells you, hey, mom and dad are getting a divorce. Mom's been diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. I'm depressed, I'm not happy. You know, that is probably the hardest part of my job. I have more kids confide in me and, you know, fill me in on what's going on in their life. And believe it or not, there's times that I leave here and I go home and I don't quite get home. You know, my wife and my kid will ask me, you know, hey, are you coming home? And I'll be sitting right there on the couch. And when I have those days when I have kids confide in me on something like that, it's hard to come home. I will think about you guys and try to figure out what I can do better and what I can do for you. But I would say any time that a kid is hurting and confides in me, that's the hardest part of my job.
Okay. So earlier you talked about like how you have to kind of get the technology away from them in like a world today where technology is so like relevant with us. Like how hard is it usually to get that away from them, to get them to focus more on school than the phones they have?
Well, gee whiz, it depends on the kid, and
Yeah.
it depends on what kind of support we're getting on, you know, at home. If parents are on their kids and are teaching them proper study habits, you know, proper work ethic, then it's not a big deal. If we're not getting a ton of support at home and we're letting kids just run roughshod on their technology, then they get here, nothing changes. It's harder than heck to get them to focus in on their schoolwork. Now we have these fidgety spinner things going on as well. And I had a kid tell me, well, it helps me concentrate on my schoolwork or something. And I'm like, how about just concentrate on your schoolwork rather than the spinny thing?
Yeah,
so
that thing.
I'm not quite getting it. I'm thankful that I'm not going to school during this era.
Yeah.
I would be really, you know, I would be distracted big time if I had to go to school now.
Yeah, I'm already distracted a lot, so.
Yeah. No, you said that the families are a big part of the kids' study habits and all that. How do you deal with those families? Like, how do you deal with that?
Well, you have to deal with the kid. I'm not dealing with the families.
Yeah.
You have to, and what I have to do is try to relay to them, if you want opportunities in life and you want to have success in life, then you need to lock in. And I try to teach them the study habits. I try to teach them work ethic. I try to relay to them how important it is to be here, how important it is to get your diploma. And so that's how I deal with it. I mean, things that they should be taught at home, and we're trying to relay to them here if they don't get it there. So, boy, do I wish I could go talk to mom and dad, but I don't think I'd be here very long.
Yeah.
Probably not the best.
No.
So you coach football and basketball here too, and you also said that you kind of coach kids to be better students. What kind of the differences between your coaching, just your coaching in sports and then your coaching in the school?
No difference.
No difference. Use the same tactics pretty much.
I mean, carrot and a stick. Out on the football field or the basketball court, you don't do what we want you to do. You're not doing something right. There's going to be a consequence to that, right?
Yeah.
We're going to make you run. You're not going to play. In here, the consequences are a lot more severe. You don't do your schoolwork. You don't get your diploma. You're not going to college. You're not going to the military. Your amount of opportunities in life are going to be really small. The success that you probably see in life isn't going to be what you want. I really don't see any difference in between teachers and coaches. They're one and the same, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
Yeah. What is the hardest thing with like coaching kids?
Hardest thing with coaching kids would be right back to, the last thing that's hardest to be in a para. You're dealing with humans and everything that entails, okay? So the personal stuff, that, and then on top of that, you have kids who sometimes turn out for sports for the wrong reasons. They don't love it. Mom and dad want them to be on the team. And you're having to deal with a kid who maybe doesn't want to be all in. When you're coaching sports, you want kids that are 110% all in to what's going on. Coaching, other things that make it hard, let's say, keeping kids eligible. That's the number one thing right there. That's one different aspect right there. Here at Getchell, we're serious about our academics. If you're not passing classes, you don't get to play. So that's a constant fight that goes on in the athletic department. And we're constantly stressing grades. We're constantly stressing we want to treat our fan base good. We're not trying to have football players up in here picking on kids, being a complete fiasco. One thing we preach to them, if you want to have a fan base, treat them good. So, and I hope that's coming through to everybody here at Getchell. We want to see everybody out at our athletic events. So I would say that, and the same things that go on up here, you deal with down in the athletic department. So, and another thing is, you can have a kid who absolutely loves the game of football, okay? But physically not there yet, and maybe athletically is never going to be there. And then that kid comes to you and asks you, how do I get better? I want to play. And the only thing you can tell them is keep working, hard work. And maybe in the back of your head you're thinking, it's a long shot, but you don't tell that kid that. We're trying to instill work ethic. We'll never tell a kid, it's futile, don't try. We're always going to tell a kid, keep striving, keep fighting for what you want and what you want to achieve. It's hard to see kids like that who love sports, but who might be on the low end of the athletic development stage. They want it more than anything, and you just know that maybe they're never going to be the starter, they're never going to be the superstar, and it hurts. It hurts to cut kids in basketball, standing there with a clipboard and marking kids' names off, the clipboard, and oh, there you go. That was probably the hardest thing in the athletic department, was being in there with Coach Shue, Coach Lurie, and Coach Kilmer, and telling kids, you're done. That's tough.
Yeah. So you gotta just you just want those kids to stick in there. Just like our next segment, which is about gum, and we'll see you after that. Welcome back. I am here with Brooklyn, my co-host, and Jeremy Clark, and we are going to talk about how you were a surfer. Now, is that your favorite hobby, or?
Yeah, so I grew up down on the coast in Grace Harbor, Washington, so in a little town called Montesano, and we're about 10 miles from the ocean. And I had a big brother who was a skater, surfer, snowboarder, and like any little brother, I wanted to do what he did. And I obviously played football and basketball and baseball growing up, but I always surfed and skateboarded, and then later on got into snowboarding. But yeah, if there's been one constant in my life, it's I love the ocean and I love to surf waves. And gigantic part of my life, especially, I would say the last 14 years of my life, I did a lot of chasing waves. No wave was too big, no location was too remote or exotic, and I would travel and just chase waves, and I love the sport. It's a great way to stay in shape. I love to be in the wild. The second that you paddle out in the ocean, make no mistake about it, you're in the wild. And I love every bit of the culture around surfing. I love to travel. Well, the best way for me to travel, I think, is on a surf trip. And I've been from Chile to Costa Rica to Nicaragua to Hawaii, and that's just naming a few. But yeah, nothing better that Coach Clark loves than to get barreled, be inside of a wave and come out and just be stoked, for sure.
Where's your favorite place to surf?
Here in Washington or in the world?
Wherever.
Well, I'll just go first off. I love to surf Washington. There's not a lot of people here that surf, and you can find your own wave. The technology or the equipment in surfing has gotten a lot better. So I'm wearing a Patagonia wetsuit, and you'd be really surprised at how warm you can really be. So, but my favorite place to surf here in Washington would probably be a little Indian village called La Push, Washington. I absolutely love it there. It's beautiful there. So one of my favorite places to surf in the world would be back here at home in La Push. My favorite place to surf outside of here, I would have to say, would be a little village in Chile, in the central part of Chile, a place called Buchu Pareo. And not a lot of people there, small village, really remote, but they have the best waves in the world. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Penguin movie. It was the computer animated surf movie, and every wave was perfect. And that's a lot like Chile. The waves there are perfect, not a lot of people. The food's awesome, the people are awesome, and my wife is actually from there, so I'm married to a Chilean gal, so that
Did
actually...
you meet her down there? Or?
No, I actually met her in South Korea.
Oh, okay.
I met her there.
Can you surf like all year round, or is there only
No, you can surf all year round.
would you just like put on a wetsuit or something?
Just, yep, wetsuit. Here in Washington, you have to wear a wetsuit all year round. So the winter months, you're wearing a wetsuit that is, it's called a 543, and that's the thickness of the wetsuit. 5 is the thickest, so it's a wetsuit built for cold weather and cold waves. In the summertime, you can go down to like a 4 mil wetsuit, but here in Washington, you're always going to have a wetsuit on when surfing. Whereas like you can go to Southern California, and in their wintertime, you're going to be wearing a wetsuit, but in the summertime, you can get into your trunks and the water warms up a lot more.
What's like? Have you like almost like? Is there any like life-threatening situations you've been in from surfing before?
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Want to tell us like a story about it or something?
Well, there's a so surfing now it was before professional surfing was, a lot of tricks and stuff like that. Now it's kind of progressed. Now they have a tour for big wave surfing. Just the dude who catches the biggest wave wins. And so there's a place in Chile that hosts one of those competitions, and I've surfed there. The biggest issue you have in surfing big waves is when you go down and you get rolled up, it's can you get back up before that second wave comes and hits you again? And so when you get held down for 2 waves, that's when you get into a lot of trouble. I've been held down for 2 waves. I've been held down for 1 wave, come up, taken a breath, a real quick breath, had the second one maul me, and have to endure that. There's a lot of practice and training that goes on.
Yeah, you got to be pretty like have a strong core for it, right?
I'm not going from just beginner to going to 20-foot waves in a day. Okay, this is a lifetime, and this is also a lot of training. I'll do interval training where I'm on the treadmill and I'll hold my breath, or I'll be mountain biking, hold my breath. At every different heart rate, I will hold my breath. Whether it's sitting on the toilet or running 5 miles, I'll do periodic intervals of holding my breath. And what I've found is when you exercise at your highest rate, your highest heart rate, if you practice holding your breath during that period of time, then it's times like this, you can hold your breath for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I am going to surf like waves of consequence, which would be 15 feet or bigger, I make sure I've done a lot of breath holding exercises, and I want to be really confident going into that environment.
How long do you think you could hold your breath for?
I think at my peak time, just right under 3 minutes.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Because I do swimming, and I could get like halfway across, and I have to take a breath. It's like 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's something that you have to practice, and you have to get uncomfortable doing it. And so My son was a swimmer here as well.
Okay.
Proud member of the Getchell swim team.
Who was he?
Darian Corcoran Clark.
Oh yeah, I know him.
You know him?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my son.
Oh, cool. So, and I know he's in the Army too, right? He's
Yes,
in
he
the Army,
is.
Just like you were.
Yep.
So,
What part of the Army were you doing for?
I worked in special operations. I was a ranger. I
Mhm.
served in the 75th Ranger Regiment, and we did it all. We jumped out of planes, we scuba dived, we rappelled out of helicopters, we climbed mountains. We did a lot of raids, ambushes, counterterrorism. One of our biggest missions was whenever we would invade a country, there's always airfields, airports. We would go in, parachute in, take the airfields down, and then our own aircraft could use them. Any kind of raids, ambushes, long range reconnaissance. We would work with SEALs. We would work with Green Berets, Air Force Combat Control. So, yeah, the majority of my time in the military was spent in the Special Operations Command.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite part about the Special Ops?
My favorite part is the camaraderie. You know that the guy, the guy on the left and right, he had your back, straight up.
Yeah.
No safe spaces. The only safe space was right behind me and right behind my buddies. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for people with low courage, low determination. I loved it that I was with like-minded people, and the friends and the brothers that I met there, I'll never have ever again, period.
how long
Yeah.
did you serve?
I was in for 4 years.
4 years. So, one deployment. Is that how it works? It's 4 years.
I was actually in during the period of 91 and 95, so I wasn't in after 9/11. I actually was injured playing football. I played 2 years, and then I was injured. 9/11 happened, and I tried to go back and get with my brothers, and my injury prevented me from going back, and I'm okay with it.
So we have our next segment about golf, so we'll see you after that.
Step 1, drive. Step 2, get out of the sand trap. Step 3, putt. Step 4, for the win. Step 5, celebrate.
Welcome back. I am with my co-host Brooklyn, and we are talking to Jeremy Clark. So before the break, you said you had been injured in football in college?
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't a football-related injury. After my second year of playing and being in school, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. It's an autoimmune disease. So during training and when I was trying to, gain weight and get ready for the next season, I got really sick. A lot of pain in the stomach, losing weight when I should have been gaining weight. And then it just progressed and got worse and worse, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And really, really scary time. You know, and we have a couple students here that are passing out and they're not sure what's wrong with them. I can really relate and really feel for those kids going through a period of time of not knowing what's going on with you and having to stress out and worry about it. But yeah, so finally I was rushed to the hospital and I was diagnosed and I had to go into emergency surgery and basically woke up 24 hours later and was told, you're done, you know. It was pretty rough, pretty tough to take. I had went into the service. I come from a real humble background, so I didn't have any money for school. I went into the service to get money to go to college, to play sports, to get my degree. And to have that happen and to have my lifelong goal and dream to come just crashing down so quick, it was a tough one to take. So I didn't get to finish my career, and that was always left a bad taste in my mouth. I kind of left the game of football and really didn't want anything to do with it. I kind of turned my back on it and grabbed my surfboard and went to the ocean and tried to forget about it, to tell you the truth. Then I have a fifth grader now who 4 years ago was coming up through the ranks and came to me and said, hey Dad, Mom told me you used to play football. I want to play. And that was my reintroduction back into the game of football, to tell you the truth.
So it wasn't until a few years ago.
What's that?
It wasn't until a few years ago that you got back into the game.
Totally. That's totally the case. I'd pretty much changed, changed my whole mindset on athletics. I had went to surfing, snowboarding, mountain biking. It was all about me. And about 4 years ago, my youngest wanted to get involved in the Flag Football League, and I took him down there and didn't like what I saw out of the coach that was volunteering, and luckily he asked for help, and I kind of took it all over, and boy, I fell back in love with the game of football.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to come back to it, huh?
And, the kids were really good for me.
Yeah.
And I had a really good time, and we had success, and to be perfectly honest with you, it's what kind of got the ball rolling for me to end up here, to tell you the truth. I coached that flag football team for 3 years, and I had some people in the community kind of say, hey, Coach, we'd love to see you try to get up here at Getchell. There's some openings, and that's how I ended up here, to be perfectly honest. It was some prodding and pushing from people in the community that saw that there was an opening up on Coach Lura's staff, and they encouraged me to, try and throw my hat in the ring, and that's really how I ended up here, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, so for the game of football, you usually need kind of like big hands, right? But for our next segment, we have a segment about tiny hands and how you live with that.
no. Oh, so close. So close. Hang on.
Charter Chat. We unfortunately do not have any more time. Is there anything else you'd like to say to anybody?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me on. I'm a huge fan of your guys' show, and I'm a huge fan of this class and what you guys got going on here. It's not lost on a lot of us in the community. You guys are having gigantic success coming out of this room, and proud of you guys. And I guess I would just say I love Getchell. I love ISC, and just to let anybody know out there in Getchell land, if you ever, need anything from me whatsoever, I'm here for you. And go Chargers!
All right. All right. Thank you.
See you next time, Marysville.
Aloha. I had to get in the